Hello, and welcome to NC Insights Innovators, the voices shaping North Carolina's economic landscape. I'm your host, Yvonne Morrison, with MVP Video and Promotions. And with us today is Patrick Woodie, and Patrick is the president and CEO of the NC Rural Center, an organization that develops and promotes economic strategies to improve the quality of life of North Carolinians living in the rural areas of our state. The organization serves the state's 78 rural counties and focuses on people with low to moderate incomes and communities with limited resources. Patrick grew up in Allegheny County and earned his undergraduate and law degrees from Wake Forest University. He's the former director of the Allegheny County Chamber of Commerce and later served on the county's Board of Commissioners. After serving 7 years as vice president of programs for the NC Rural Center, he was named as president in 2013. Patrick, thank you so much for being here this morning.
I really appreciate the invite.
So, in reading about the NC Rural Center on your website, I was reading the different ways that you define rural counties. Can you explain that to us, how you do that?
Yeah, we look at our state through, we're an economic and community development organization, so we're really trying to help the more rural parts of our state improve their local economies and create investment, create jobs, and just a higher quality of life throughout rural North Carolina. We define a rural county on the basis of population density. We believe it's that density of population that really defines the characteristics of what makes a rural place the best. So there are 78 rural counties in the state of North Carolina under our definition. All of those counties have fewer than 250 people per square mile. There are 16 counties that we define as suburban or regional city. Alamance is one of those suburban counties. And all of those counties have population densities greater than 250 but less than 750. And then we define 6 core urban counties, all of which have population densities greater than 750 people per square mile.
So how exactly does your organization improve the lives of people in those areas?
Yeah, we do our work through 4 different program areas, and I'll just name them and then talk a little bit about each one. Leadership, engagement, advocacy, and small business capital. And first and foremost, leadership. We invest a lot of time and a lot of energy in equipping rural leaders, whatever hat they wear in their communities, and often it's multiple hats, how to really help them be as effective as they can be in the roles that they play within their communities. So we do a lot of leadership development training. We have a statewide Rural Economic Development Institute. We do a lot of training of leaders in regions for several reasons. Regional, getting communities to come together across county lines and work regionally toward a common goal is one of the ways that we can really help communities move forward in a quicker way and in a more sometimes in a more aggressive way, and also so that leaders within regions know each other across those county lines, and we find that that's very effective.
So they can work together instead of being isolated. They can work together,
they know each other, and they can really support and be part of each other's networks. In our engagement work, we have one of the programs I'll highlight there is our Faith in Rural Communities work. We know that one of the most important anchor institutions in any rural community, no matter how small, is a rural church. And we also find that those congregations of rural churches are very open and often very interested in trying to address the needs and the problems of the people that live right there in the community, in the front door of the church. And so we have a program that really works with church congregations and pastors to help them, give them a coach and give them a process and help them really tackle solving a community issue or meeting the needs of the community in some way that church can uniquely do. Also in engagement, we do a statewide rural conference called the Rural Summit. We did that this last March. We draw a statewide audience of around 700 people from all across the state. It's a little bit like a family reunion, but it's a great place for us to put rural leaders in touch with state leadership or federal leadership, great organizations and individuals from around the state or around the country who are doing some really quality work that we think is relevant to everybody and worth kind of shining a light on and lifting up. Then in our advocacy program area, we run a pretty robust policy agenda. Every 2 years we go around the state, and we did this last fall, and we hold a bunch of listening sessions, and we ask questions, and then we listen. And we do that to really understand what are the big challenges, what are the concerns, what are the opportunities, what are the things people are really feeling good about, and then what are the things that are truly keeping communities and the leaders in communities awake at night. And we develop a policy agenda that we then carry to the North Carolina General Assembly and to North Carolina's congressional delegation in Congress, and we really work to advocate for the policies that rural communities need in order to really support the growth and development of those communities. And then the final piece of our work, and a piece that's grown quite a bit in recent years, we manage about $300 million worth of small business capital through a number of programs, and we work with North Carolina banks, with community development financial institutions, which are called CDFIs, and with a few credit unions to really provide capital for them through a variety of programs that helps them lower the risks of lending, therefore incentivizing them to do more small business lending. And it's a program we've been doing since 2011. It's worked really well, and we've been able to reach a lot of businesses all across the state and in terms of giving them access to capital. Our whole philosophy around our small business approach is that capital is essential, but it's not enough. And so we take approach of capital, connection, really helping them build a network, helping them know where resources are, and then finally coaching, helping connect them with coaching expertise that can help them accelerate the pace of growth of their business.
As a small business owner, I can see where that would be really beneficial, especially for businesses trying to get a foothold in these smaller, more rural areas without
That's
as much
true.
support as
Yeah.
say we have here.
Well, North Carolina, we are really blessed in this state in comparison to a lot of states. We have a number of organizations, nonprofits, some of them are housed in state and even federal government, that are all focused, and they have resources a lot of times that are free for small business owners. But for your typical small business owner, you don't know about something until you really need it.
Right.
And business owners find this array of organizations and the resources they provide really difficult to navigate, or even to know what the entry points are, how to access that. Business owners may not be aware that there's a small business center at their local community college. It can be a huge resource to them. And so that's really what the connection piece is all about.
So I didn't realize until reading on your website that North Carolina has one of the largest rural populations in the country. Are we second largest?
We are. We have the second largest rural population next to
Wow.
Texas.
Wow.
So there's
really
more rural public school children in North Carolina than there is in any other state except Texas. We have more small towns with less than 10,000 population than any state except Pennsylvania. So we're a very rural state. We've seen that the rurality of our state change over time. Our definition of rural has changed over time. When we opened our doors 38 years ago in the late 1980s, there were 85 counties in North Carolina that we defined as rural counties. And so there's been a lot of the rural counties that are in close proximity to urban counties that have really been pulled in and become part of a larger metropolitan area. Alamance is a good example of that. But our state will continue to grow and to change. We see more equal growth across the entire state now than we've seen in about 20 years. Rural's not growing as fast as suburban and urban, and that's kind of what you would expect. But it is growing, and there was a long period of time in which we were losing rural population. But over the last 4 years, we've been steadily gaining population again.
Why is that, and what are the challenges for this area? Is immigration a huge challenge now because of
certainly
farmers?
Immigration is a challenge, and one of the ways this state has grown is we've seen a rapidly growing Latino population since about the early 1990s. I remember when I was a chamber director in my hometown of Sparta in Allegheny County in the early 90s, we started seeing for the first time Hispanic men, really men only, that would come. They really were migrant labor, but there would not be a Christmas tree industry in northwestern North Carolina without that population of mainly Hispanic men. And we see that in agriculture all over the state, and a lot of agriculture is rural based. So that workforce is a major concern. We also see that workforce showing up heavily. So if anything's being built, whether it's a road or a building or anything along those lines, that is a population that's really critical to our workforce in trades, in transportation, and a lot of other places. And so there is a lot of concern around having an immigration policy that allows the state to continue on the growth trajectory we've been on. And so we need immigrants in order to do that. Immigrants really at all ends of the educational and job market, from entry level all the way up to more advanced degrees. We have huge shortages of healthcare workers, for example, primary care physicians, specialty physicians, nurses. Another big area that we need not only our native population and our homegrown population to be taking those jobs, but we're going to need people coming from the outside of North Carolina and the outside of the United States. So we think it's really important that Congress and the President work toward a really sound immigration policy that allows the country to grow.
What are some of the other challenges that these communities are facing as well?
Well, we've seen a number of challenges brought about by I think the aftermath of the pandemic has revealed some things. I think we've learned some good things about ourselves. And I think that's one of the reasons rural places are growing for the first time in a long time is during COVID, people, families really rethought where they lived, how they wanted to live. And we've definitely seen, not only in North Carolina, but in states around the country and even in other countries around the world, there has been some migration of people toward less denser populated areas. And we find that if people can answer a few questions about there's a good healthcare delivery system, there's a good educational system for my kids, and there's adequate broadband, then that rural place can be a very attractive place to live. In terms of kind of the challenges that we face, rural communities, we're aging faster than the state as a whole. So we have a lot of older adults that make up our communities. And we've got to find ways to keep our kids and to show our kids that there are real career opportunities for a really good life close to home, whether it's in public schools or it's in the healthcare sector or it's in manufacturing. We lost 350,000 manufacturing jobs in this state in the early part of this century. We've seen a real stabilization of that. But in the years prior to 2000, it was not unusual for 40% or 50% of the workforce in a rural county to be engaged in some type of manufacturing. That's probably not realistic. Looking forward into the future, it's fewer jobs doing more highly skilled labor, with a lot more machine and AI and robotics and all those things coming into our manufacturing plants. But those are still the best, pound for pound. A manufacturing job is the best paying job sector in the state. And we still have a lot of manufacturing in this state. But we don't think it'll ever employ 40 to 50% of the population again.
Like it did with furniture, for example.
Exactly. Furniture, textiles, yeah.
So are rural counties, highly competitive for some of these very large industrial and commercial developments?
Some have been. If we look at some of the major announcements in this state over the last 5 years, we put a lot of, our General Assembly put a lot of resources into developing several mega sites across the state. And those mega sites are in rural counties. A lot of them sit right below kind of the I-40, I-85 corridor. Randolph County, Chatham County, Lee County, all Harnett County, all seeing the benefits of some of that mega site development. There's a lot of investment and a lot of jobs that are going to be focused into those counties. It's going to make those counties leapfrog in terms of growth, and it's going to make them become more part of the metropolitan triad regions of our state. By the same token, it's putting a lot of counties that are south of all of that a lot closer to really good paying jobs. And so we do think rural counties are going to benefit from the mega site development that we've seen in this state, and particularly the industry sectors in which that investment is occurring. By the same token, we're also advocating for small site developments. There's many rural counties in northeastern North Carolina, southeastern North Carolina, out in the western part of the state, where topography really limits development and the size of development, that there's a lot of opportunity for small sites and buildings, and we want to be able to make sure that the state is investing in product, buildings, and sites in all parts of the state that really give us something to work with in terms of attracting investment and attracting job growth. We can't ever forget in any county in this state, but particularly in our rural communities, that we need to take care of the businesses that are already there.
Absolutely.
And we need to help them grow and understand what they need in order to grow.
So when you think of rural counties, at least for me, the first thing that comes to mind is your farming communities that we've talked about.
Yeah.
And of course, agriculture has been important to North Carolina's economy from the very beginning and still is. And I read on your website the study that mentioned that there are fewer farms, fewer acres being farmed, but that the farms that remain, including family farms, are actually getting larger. How is that, and how is that change affecting these communities?
This is a trend that we see in really American agriculture, but we certainly see it vividly in this state, and it goes all the way back arguably to the 1970s, where as farming has become more automated, as there's been improvements in equipment and how we farm, and now it is a high-tech business in a lot of ways, and not as labor intensive as it once was, though labor is still incredibly important to farming. But we've seen over time sort of a steady reduction in the number of farms. At the same time, the size of farms has been increasing. And so as we've seen these pressures toward automation, which allows farmers to grow more than they used to grow, we see that it also requires a lot of investment, a lot of capital investment.
Yeah.
And that's tended to push some farmers to make a decision to leave agriculture. And so a lot of the farmers that remain and that really focus on it in a really big way, you either get big or you get out. And unfortunately, that has been one of the decisions that a number of farmers have been faced with. Now, we still have a lot of family farms in this state. We also find those small family farms that are surviving, that find niche markets. It may be local or regional farmers markets. It may be getting into product lines that they wouldn't have thought about 20, 30 years ago.
We just had the owner of Haw River Mushrooms on our podcast. And so listening to her talk about the evolution of their agricultural business and branching out into products and service areas they didn't think originally they would be in. Sounds like the way to survive.
It really is. And farmers are true entrepreneurs. They always have been, and figure things out. And they're masters at doing that, particularly if they love it and it's what they want to do, they will find a way to do it. It's kind of been my observation.
If there are small farmers out there who are struggling and they don't know where to turn, can they contact your organization?
They certainly can come
directly
to us.
Okay.
We will connect them with a number of other organizations. And they're probably very well aware of the Cooperative Extension Office. It's located in all 100 counties in this state, and that's an incredible resource and an incredible connection to NC State University, our land grant university, and the resources at NC State, but also at A&T, North Carolina A&T in Greensboro. There's a number of nonprofits that are exclusively focused on helping farmers, and we'd be glad to connect them to those organizations, make sure they're aware of them. The Commissioner of Agriculture does a great job in our state with helping support the farmers across North Carolina.
I know that your organization assists with disaster recovery. How are you involved in that, and has it changed since Hurricane Helene?
Well, it has changed. I think we've really seen it change since 2016 or 17 when Hurricane Matthew hit North Carolina. We were very fortunate. We didn't have a catastrophic hit from Floyd in '99, Hurricane Floyd in 1999. I mean, there certainly were storms and there certainly were impacts, but until Matthew was the next really big one. There's been a series of big ones since then, and then Helene, really devastating. Nothing, not to diminish the damage done by those earlier hurricanes, but we haven't seen anything like Helene in a part of the state that a lot of us would have said was relatively safe from that kind of damage until it wasn't.
Yeah.
And so that's the world we live in. And our work has changed dramatically. We find ourselves now, rather trying to directly respond to everything, we're trying to be more of an intermediary where we support, particularly in the aftermath of a hurricane, small business recovery, and do that by supporting the CDFIs that are on the ground near where the event occurred, and making sure they have the resources in order to respond to the communities they're already actively involved in serving. And I would really lift up Mountain BizWorks in Western North Carolina for the phenomenal job they've done in responding to Hurricane Helene. We still got a long way to go. And the other observation I would make is that our systems for how we respond to natural disasters are not working as efficiently or as well as they once did. And that's something we really need to pay attention to, because we're only one bad weather forecast away from, another event. We're now at the time of year where we're beginning to think about hurricane season again. We've seen tornadoes in the northeastern part of the state, Roanoke Rapids, as early as recent as a week ago. And so there's always and people need help to put things back together, and they need expertise that doesn't reside in the community, but can really come and help out and help them get organized to really bring their community back.
So why are these support systems not what they once were? What's going on?
I think there's a lot of, I think we've overcomplicated things. I think we need to kind of step back and say, when we walk into a community after a disaster and we tell them we're going to make them whole, we need to ask ourselves, do we really mean that? And if we don't mean it, we need to quit saying it. But things are so complex. A lot of the programs are extremely bureaucratic. The funding moves very slow. Our North Carolina General Assembly will generally make resources available, and they're pretty quick to do that. But they also want to know what the federal government is going to do before they start spending state dollars, because
Right.
the state alone cannot meet. There's no way that North Carolina can meet the needs alone after a event like Helene. And so the federal government is really who we look to for the bulk of those recovery dollars and to really get things jump started. And then that helps the state know how to spend their dollars to fill the gaps of the things that the federal government won't do. And I think it's just time that we really need, with open eyes, to look at how that whole system is working and how it's not working, and ask ourselves some really hard questions about, what do we intend to do? What can we do? What are we going to do? And let's not mislead people.
Absolutely. Because like you said, any of us are just one weather forecast away from disaster at any time.
That's right. That is exactly right.
What do you see as emerging industries or economic opportunities that could transform rural areas? And do the people there want to be transformed in a dramatic way, or are they pretty happy with the way things are?
I think that they love their quality of life. I've never met a rural person that didn't love their community. And I mean, that's the way I feel about mine. I grew up in Piney Creek, North Carolina, so I live in Cary, but people ask me, where's home? Home is Piney Creek in Allegheny County. People love their places. I don't think they want them transformed into something else. And I don't think rural aspires to be urban. And oftentimes, success is defined by, for a rural county, in terms of rapid population growth. And that's not going to happen everywhere. It's going to happen in places that already are close to some real population density. But that's the kind of change that makes a lot of rural folks pretty nervous. They like their quality of life. They like elbow room and the more dispersed nature of the population. But they do want to see their communities do well. They do want to see things in their communities that they're proud of and that they've contributed to making happen. And so they may define success differently, but there are opportunities in every rural community. We teach communities, to really understand their local assets, and assets are the things upon which you build for the future. And if you look at the sectors that are really growing, our state is very diverse in terms of the businesses we have on the ground and the private employment that we have. So there's different strong sectors in just about every corner of the state. There are some sectors that are kind of equally strong across the state. So manufacturing is present in a lot of places. It's not present in every place, but that's an important sector. Healthcare, I don't care where you are, urban, suburban, rural, we have real healthcare opportunities for someone that wants to enter the healthcare workforce at virtually any level. And a lot of points of entry that allow someone to get started in a career in healthcare and then to move up the ladder as much and as far as they really would want to go. And so I think that's one of the exciting things. In a lot of our rural communities, we have a huge need for trade jobs. And there's huge opportunities for budding entrepreneurs, wannabe small business owners, somebody that wants to kind of control their own life and their own destiny to get into HVAC, plumbing, electricity, any of those trade jobs. Perhaps they can partner with an existing business where the owner is beginning to age out and maybe doesn't know what he's going to do with the future of his business, and it may be a good opportunity for a young person to take it over and have a really vibrant business that can produce a really high quality of life for him and his family, or her and her family.
And they can come to NC Rural Center for help with that.
And we'll try to help them with that. Reach out and kind of grab their small business dream, yeah.
So are there any upcoming initiatives or programs that the Rural Center is working on that our viewers might find interesting?
We are working through a strategic planning process with our board of directors right now, which is going to result in us offering a number of new program opportunities. And that will be across the board at the Rural Center, particularly in our small business capital area. We're excited about some of the things we're looking at that we're not ready to announce yet, but that we think are going to be in the mix, ways in which we're going to be able to help invest in the growth of rural-based businesses in particular across the state. I think we're also looking on the cusp of seeing our leadership development programs really grow and expand. That need is not going away, and we need to make sure we're finding those people, identifying them, and for those that want to really continue, that we wrap our arms around them and we never let them go, and we support them throughout their careers. So it's a pretty good time at the Rural Center, and looking forward to the future. We feel pretty good about that.
Well, so do we. Listening to you explain everything that you're doing, I had no idea that this was a thing, and that it was so important to what's happening in North Carolina.
We opened our doors in 1987, so we'll turn 40 in a couple of years, and we're looking ahead to kind of that benchmark. There's been distinct chapters, just like there's chapters in the life of a person. There's been chapters in the life of the North Carolina Rural Center. We've tried to evolve over those decades to really continue to meet the needs of our rural communities and help them be as good as they can be.
Well, it sounds like you're doing a lot of great things out there, and we certainly appreciate that. And we appreciate you appearing on our podcast today.
Well, I appreciate the invitation.
This is really interesting.
I've enjoyed our conversation.
Yeah, same. I have as well. Thank you for watching NC Insights and Innovators. If you would like to learn more about our video podcast, please visit the website at the bottom of your screen. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.